Canada's Wonderland, my first visit for the 2023 season. I've already been here for half the day and I've ridden now every ride in the park, except for the one that's actually just beyond me here, which is Snoopy's Racing Railway, the new for 2023 attraction. And then all the way at the other side of the park there is also Tundra Twister, which is opening as well, probably in a couple of weeks' time for what you would know, or for most of you would know as Memorial Day weekend, or as we know it as May 2-4. That all said, I'm going to go through the park and give you kind of a relaxed vlog today. This is, I don't even know how many vlogs I've done from this park now, but we're getting to the point where we've peaked out, I believe, as I've covered so much here that I can't even reshoot the same angles over and over again without thinking it's somewhat redundant. So I'm going to try to avoid that and give you a full scope of all the rides here, at least the credits and the roller coasters that are available, and of course not including the one beyond me that I won't be able to ride anyway, just like Taxi Jam on the other side, as I don't have a little one to do so. Hopefully we'll get some ERT on these rides maybe in the future. Wonderland, if you're watching, please, that would be great. I'd love to get all the credits in Ontario done and dusted this year, as I'm pretty much only 2 away now, so that would be nice as well. Beyond the point, let's get in the park, let's check it out. It's a beautiful day here, it's Monday, it's so relaxed, it's exactly what I wanted, and it's been 4 years since that's happened, so it's crazy to think. But yeah, that's gonna kind of wrap up sort of like the Wonderland scope of the channel, because there's not much else to report other than these 2 new rides when they finally do open a little later into the spring as mentioned. So, all right, let's do this. We're going to the park. We're gonna check out some rides. We're gonna do it nice and relaxed like we used to. Whew. It's almost like something never happened in the last 3 years, right? All right, let's get inside. First up in the offering is Silver Streak. It's the back of the park, so why not hit it first on a slower day like this when it's a walk-on, just got a backseat ride. It's as janky as any of these Vekoma models can be remembered for, and really it serves one purpose, which is to give that intermediary thrill to certain people that are of the want for an intermediate thrill, you know, not ready to go on Leviathan or that matter. So at the end of the day, enjoyed it, not going to come back and do it again. I would say if you're going to have a youngling that wants to get on a ride like this, it's not that scary, it's not that fast. I come back to the queue for Ghoster Coaster because now being 40 years on and more, it's just so nostalgic to be in this building, and it's still actually being here, and it pretty much being the exact same as it was as I remembered it when I was a very, very small kid. And therefore, kids of this generation and many generations have been able to enjoy this ScoobyDoo haunted house for what it is. The ride itself, almost the same as it was. Let's not forget, it is the ride that terrified Christopher Walken in the Dead Zone. So if it's enough to do that to him, I guess it's always worth a ride when you're in the park, and you can do all the rides, or at least all the coasters, within a day like today. Now there's been some discussion and many changes in the off-season. One big noticeable one is the lack of trees that has been noted on other channels, and I'm just getting acquainted with myself here at Swing of the Century. I will admit that when I was on this last year that my feet did in fact hit the trees several times, so I now know why they actually got rid of these trees. It doesn't take away from the fact that it is a loss for this area and makes it rather barren looking and far different than how I remember it, even if the sight lines here are much better. You it also puts it to thought that there might be something that's going on with this entire area, as this actual ride was relocated from a former area just behind us here. So who knows, they might have sights on this. I think this area does need it because it's underserviced, it's disused. A lot of the original features like the bandstand that used to exist in areas like this are no longer being used. The thing about the Wild Beast is it can only be what it's always been, which is wild. Which is why it is the most wildest ride in the park, and why I still love this roller coaster to this day. Yes, it is the probably most roughest coaster here, and on certain occasions, if you're not playing it right, it can be one of the worst rides you've ever taken on a wood coaster. But that's kind of why I like it in a way, because it's just so temperamental and a beast of a contraption for its size, because it's not a juggernaut, a medium-sized roller coaster to begin with. There's always going to be people on the fence about whether or not this ride should stay, but as far as I'm concerned, with it being one of only 3 wood coasters in the park and one of the originals, and the fact that it's still here, it really does have a place in the park for as long as it can stay. It's also based on a classic design from Cincinnati back in the day, which the park was based, or at least Kings Island was, so it does have a place in history. It predates Grizzly. There's so much that I could say about this ride. It's just, you know, it's maybe a one ride special when you get here, but you're always going to ride it once when you get here too. Wild Beast, still running as rough as ever, and long may it do so. It has been some time since I actually tackled Guardian early in the day today. Shockingly, it was available. Shockingly, it was one of the better rides I've had on it in recent memory. The resolution on the screen seems to have been tweaked since the last year that I was here, because I could actually see everything pretty clearly. Yeah, everything was running well. The music was actually running. They could definitely use some more bass and maybe a little bit more volume when it comes to the music, because it doesn't really it's not that much noticeable unless you actually pay attention. Yeah, because it does still feel a bit quiet in there. Still, that drop is one of the best actual surprises in this park, and running excellently as well, so I'm surprised. Yeah, it seems Guardian's kind of put it together and has been running throughout the day without issue. Has Triotech finally got their act together? Who knows? But good marks on Guardian in this particular visit today. I'm not going to spend much time on Flight Deck or Time Warp, nor should I, as I've done in the past anyway, and we all know what these rides are all about. The first ever SLC that I ever rode really still probably has a special place in my heart because of that, but it's still not the best one even in Canada now, as that is a little down the road in Montreal. The one thing about these particular older restraint SLCs is that the smell, I'm sorry, but it just drives me crazy. I have a very sensitive nose, and I can't get away from the fact that the scent of the restraints when they're not cleaned properly is really, it puts you off. Which is a perfect segue to this ride, because it's even worse on that ride, because you're getting that restraint right up in your face. It's really nice, you know, experiencing every prior guest that has experienced Time Warp as you get on it for the first time, or hopefully only one time for when you come here. It wasn't the worst ride I've had on it by any stretch of imagination, but it's really just a terrible, awful piece of engineering that one day, I'm sure when it's gone, we'll look back in nostalgia's sake and be like, oh my god, I can't believe people actually rode that ride. So those are done. I'm not sure I'll even be on either of them for the rest of the year, other than the fact that, you know, Flight Deck has probably one of the most lush and bucolic sort of settings as you go in. The landscaping and everything leading into the station is still really lovely, so, you know, it leaves you up for disappointment later on. Sorry, but it's the truth of the matter. We want a GCI there. Four rides on Behemoth in the can, 2 close to the front, 1 close to the middle, and then 1 pretty close to the back. It is warmed up in the course of the day, I will say, because those were 2 powerful rides that we got in just there a second ago. The speed it takes on that hammerhead turnaround, unbelievable. Yeah, the first section of the course was definitely some of the fastest that I've ever taken it. And then beyond that, yeah, still a really decent ride. You get the idea why this is an airtime machine just from days like this when it's really running up to its best mechanically and technically than, say, on a day like today. Yeah, it's been excellent. It really is kind of competing sometimes with Leviathan as being the best ride in this park, and I get why people say that. On a day like today, I get it. Sometimes I don't. Night rides on this, however, are always unbelievable, so I'm looking forward to that maybe later on in the season to give it a full encompassing review when it comes to that. So I might as well cover Backlot while we're in the area. Another solid ride. I would say this is the sleeper hit of Wonderland, to be honest, because it has a snappy launch, great helix. I love that finale in the dark. It's just a powerful, powerful change in altitude that you're not expecting as you go down and dive underneath the station. This ride is cloned everywhere. Everyone kind of knows what it's about, but I still think it's one of the more solid offerings in the park, surprisingly, still to this day. So long may it rain. You know, no effects, unfortunately, but they haven't been around for years, so who knows? Maybe they'll return one day, but I'm not holding out any hope for that. All finished Mindbuster behind me, 2 rides, both in the back. Almost got in the front on this one, but every time that you're in the line with one person ahead of you and they do the old, they're always going to the front. So lo and behold, I prefer the back anyway, so that was fine. Excellent ride. Definitely a tiny bit less janky than, say, Wild Beast on the other side. It really is coming as per the norm. The one thing that disturbs me, as you'll see on the train behind me, though, just from a nostalgia sake, is that there's no longer Canada's Wonderland logo on the front of the train. I'm not so sure what that's about. It's warmed up a bit through the day. Helix at the end was fantastic. Drop has been reprofiled somewhat, was relatively smooth. I'd say the only section that was a little bit too, that needs a bit of work still would probably be that return before the Helix, as yeah, the train is going at such a speed that I don't really think they can do anything to really perfect that other than to get that nasty Titan track involved, but that is for another rumor for another day. Yukon as well has been completed. I've covered this ride so many times. It was an excellent ride. It's running no different than I've remembered it, literally from day one of its opening. So there's not much to cover there, other than it's still a great ride. It's not my favorite one in the park anymore, as far as from a B&M standpoint, because I think the original excitement of a brand new B&M at the time overwhelmed people like myself, and I ranked it higher than I should have at that time. But it's still a great ride. Nothing to take away from it. Looking forward to how it's going to fit into the new Frontier Canada as Tundra Twister and everything comes to fruition over the next 2 years. it's not every day that you get 2 consecutive front row rides on Vortex, plus a backseat ride before that. So I had to take advantage of that, despite the fact that it's getting close to park close, and I got one more ride to capture before that happens. 50-50 chance to guess what that is, which you probably will know, as it hasn't been covered yet in this vlog. While I'm going over to that section, I got other rides that I did earlier that I need to cover, including coming up in front of us, Fly, which was essentially a walk-on when I came in today. Just so you know, I kind of prioritize these longer queue rides that tend to be less thrills, less throughput. And Fly is probably one of those ones that you definitely want to get early in the day, because it does get popular on busier days with families and stuff. And it obviously has a pretty limited capacity. What have I got to say about it? Not much of anything, honestly, because I've already done one of these this year at Knott's. And yeah, it's nice to get on these rides when it's only you on it, when you're in a single rider situation, which I definitely had the benefit of today, which was nice. But, you know, for a wild mouse, it's okay. I actually didn't mind my ride on it today. It wasn't too bad. But there's not much I can really say about these models because they're pretty standard. But it was nice to get on it and get that credit for the year out of the way. Carrying on to a favorite, and my first ride of the day, which was Thunder Run. We all have to hail Herman when we start the season, and that's what I did. His diamond is nicely lit up inside. The strobe effects are working, which is great. There's not much more to say about the interior, as the original cave lightings in the centerpiece aren't actually illuminated, unfortunately, which means that we're getting like not a full complement of what this ride has to offer, but it's pretty close to what it was back in the day. Yet another credit to cover before we hit our final 2 for the day, and that of course would be the Bat. As you can see how sparse it is. Clockworks has had a complete reworking, and I believe this is its original color scheme. It's gone back to its original blue highlights, because it used to be just orange and red. Still hasn't got better brakes though. We were also able to get onto the back relatively quick because of its single rider line. It is actually the longest wait of the park today, and I think it even still does have a wait still technically. And again, I don't think I really have much that I need to say about a Vekoma Boomerang, as you know, I've done almost a dozen of these now, and they're all pretty much the same. It wasn't running too bad. The head rattle wasn't terrible, but you do need to brace yourself accordingly for the Bat. There's been some new parts added to the cars, as far as I know, from the Vortex cars that are in storage, but you know, you're not going to really notice much of a difference, other than the ride is actually functioning, which is nice, because this thing always has some technical issues, usually once or twice per year. But 2 coasters left to cover in our all-encompassing available coasters vlog for today. And that would be 2 of its most 2 of the park's most well-known rides. Now, of course, I could provide a review for the most reviewed ride in this park, which I'm definitely going to do, but I think before I do that, we're going to get one more ride, or maybe a couple, in on Leviathan, and then we'll wrap things up on the way out. And that is it. Couldn't resist the line still being open and getting yet another ride on Leviathan. 6 today. That is almost a personal record, I'm sure. Fantastic ride. Train 2, running fantastic. Train 3, a bit janky. I'm not so sure about Train 1 if I actually got on it today. Oh, this great music in the background. I'm really a big fan. Sorry, I just wish the old Wonderland music returned. We also did get on Dragonfire, which had like a minimal repaint today. Well, not today, but in the front section of the ride over in its turnaround towards the hill. Nothing really to say other than I didn't gray out on the loop, and not graying out on Dragonfire is definitely an accomplishment. It was running pretty smooth. I know it's also been tinkered with in the off season. No real major noticeable changes, but still a solid aero that deserves to stay in this park. Okay, I've actually left the park because I had to get away from the music. It's very overwhelming at Wonderland, almost like La Ronde. Canadian amusement parks, we just love to blast you with pop. Anyhow, selections weren't so bad, but I needed to sum up that Leviathan is running fantastic and is definitely my favorite roller coaster in this park currently, and nothing's really going to top that. A couple of surprises. Guardian's Drop definitely is a highlight. Backlot is running well, and that's also a highlight. Mindbuster is running decently. Wild Beast, I've already covered, it is what it is. If you like rough shot rides, then that's your bag of tea. But I've done every credit that I can, or every coaster that I can, all 16 of 17 that is available to me, as I still have not gotten onto Taxi Jam. But one day we'll finally get on that ride, and then there'll be another credit as well mentioned that I'm going to have to try to sneak onto in the near future here. So I look forward to sharing Tundra Twister and maybe Snoopy's Racing Railway when those open in a future vlog. The next one is going to be a sort of sum up of the flat rides in this park, another tour of the history of this park, as I've learned quite a lot in the last 2 years doing documentaries about this particular park, and noticed a lot more about its history that still is present today. But for now, thanks for watching, guys. 2023, here we go. We're back to regular business here at Wonderland. Look forward to sharing a little bit of that with you this year. Thanks for watching.